Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into one of history's biggest paradoxes, Good Friday. It's a story packed with darkness and sacrifice, but it has a name that seems, well, completely wrong.
So let's just get right to it. What is the central mystery of this day? Okay, picture this. It's about 2,000 years ago. An innocent man is publicly executed. There are earthquakes, and for 3 hours in the middle of the day, the sun just vanishes from the sky. And yet believers call this day good. So how can a day filled with so much suffering and tragedy possibly be considered good? To really get what happened on that Friday, we actually need to rewind the clock a little bit to the night before, in a quiet olive grove known as the Garden of Gethsemane. So Jesus is there with his closest friends, and he's experiencing the psychological and emotional stress that is so crushing, he says his very soul feels like it's at the point of death. And to make matters worse, his disciples, they keep falling asleep, leaving him to face this all alone. And this wasn't just in his head. The anguish was so intense, it started to affect him physically. The Bible says his sweat was like drops of blood, which sounds unbelievable, but it's a recognized medical condition called hematidrosis. It's incredibly rare, and it only happens under extreme distress, when tiny capillaries in the sweat glands actually burst. So this was a physical ordeal before any of the violence had even started. And right there, in the middle of all that physical and emotional pain, he prays this. This moment of submission, of choosing God's plan over his own very human desire to escape the horror ahead, this is the foundational act of the whole sacrifice. It's the decision that sets everything else into motion. And it was right there, in that moment of complete isolation and submission, that the first act of betrayal begins to unfold. For 30 pieces of silver, which, by the way, was the legal price for an injured slave back then, one of his own, Judas Iscariot, betrayed him. And he didn't just point him out. He identified Jesus to the soldiers with a kiss, twisting a symbol of love into an act of treachery. What happened next was just a total mockery of justice. First, an illegal trial in the middle of the night with paid, false witnesses. Then he's dragged before the Roman governor Pontius Pilate for a political trial. And Pilate, he gives the crowd a choice: release this man, Jesus, or release a known murderer named Barabbas. The crowd chose Barabbas. Now, Pilate was a smart politician. He could tell there was no legal reason to condemn Jesus. He even asks this now famous cynical question, what is truth? But worried about a riot, he just symbolically washes his hands of the whole affair and sentences an innocent man to one of the most brutal forms of execution ever invented. And all of this leads to the climax of the story, the crucifixion, which took place just outside the city walls at a place called Golgotha, meaning the place of the skull. Crucifixion was designed to be a long, public, agonizing spectacle. But something else was going on here. At noon, just when the sun should have been at its highest and brightest, a deep, unnatural darkness fell over the entire land, and it stayed that way for 3 full hours. Let's think about this for a second. In the middle of unimaginable pain, what are his first words from the cross? They're not a curse, not a cry for revenge. It's a prayer for the very people who were killing him. And he wasn't alone up there. He was crucified between 2 criminals. One of them joined the crowd and mocked him. But the other guy, recognized something different about Jesus and asked for mercy. To that man, Jesus makes this incredible promise of immediate salvation. And then, in that last hour, came this desperate cry. For Christians, this is maybe the most profound moment of all. The belief is that right here, Jesus is taking on the weight of all human sin. And for the first time ever, he feels a complete spiritual separation from God. It's a pain that was deeper than any nail. Okay, so at the exact moment he dies, 3 in the afternoon, as he breathes his last, something absolutely incredible happens miles away, right in the heart of Jerusalem's temple. Inside the temple, there was this massive, thick curtain that separated the holiest area, where God's presence was said to dwell. It was a physical symbol of the barrier between a holy God and sinful humanity. Only the high priest could go past it, and only once a year. Well, at the moment Jesus died, that veil was torn in 2, not from the bottom up, but from the top down, as if by an invisible, divine hand. The symbolism was unmistakable. The barrier was gone.
And the impact of all this was undeniable. A hardened Roman centurion, a soldier who had probably overseen countless executions, saw the earthquake, saw the sky go dark, heard Jesus' last words, and this total non-believer was so shaken, he made this stunning declaration.
Which brings us full circle, right back to our original question. After all of this horror, the betrayal, the pain, the injustice, what could possibly make this Friday good?
The answer is actually hidden in one of his final words from the cross, tetelestai. In ancient Greek, this one little word had a powerful double meaning. Sure, it meant it is finished, like a job is done, but it was also a common business term. It's the word that would be stamped on an invoice when a debt was completely and totally paid in full. And that is why it's called Good Friday. It's not good because of the suffering itself, but because of what that suffering accomplished. For believers, Jesus' death wasn't a tragedy. It was a cosmic transaction. The debt of human sin was paid off. The curtain was torn. A new direct path to God was open for anyone. It was the ultimate victory, perfectly disguised as a defeat. This single verse is often seen as the perfect summary of the why behind it all. The motivation, it says, wasn't anger or judgment, but love. The whole thing was a rescue mission, and the price of that rescue was the incredible sacrifice we've just walked through.
And that is the paradox of Good Friday, a day of profound darkness that, for millions of people, represents the ultimate source of light and hope. It leaves us with this final thought. Whatever you believe, what does an act of such sacrificial love from 2,000 years ago mean in the world we live in today?